Stop listening to the endless voice in your head. Let other people listen to it instead. Poetry for others. Poetry for myself. Poetry for art. Poetry for politics. Poetry for advertising building societies. Yes, it's happened. Poetry for building society. Poetry for making sense. Common sense and nonsense. Poetry is for sharing what you notice. Poetry is for sharing what you feel. Poetry is for calm at the center of the storm. I admire poets who puzzle me, but I don't enjoy being puzzled. Why mystify your readers? To impress them? Because you have a frame of reference known and knowable only to you? Because the words keep coming to you, inexplicable but somehow irresistible? Because you don't care if your words mean anything? Because you are happy not taking responsibility for what you say? A lot of poets hope their work will make them understood, to give their version of their story. Perhaps what's clear to them is something they want to explain. And we all love that, don't we? Listening to poets explaining that sort of stuff. Anyway, not everything I say needs saying to the world, though one likes to say something, even if it's naught but the current trivia, which may yet meet some choice reader's criteria, though it fail to achieve the truly superior. Yet, a sensitive sounding brass can't help picking up the vibrations in the wind. The prevailing tone needs to be tested and contrasted, quizzed, parodied, protested, exposed, argued, echoed, celebrated. And if we don't create the poetry of our time, we are condemned to live inside a dreary rhyme, told what to expect at the end of each line, not piercing through the crusty surface, nor soaring past the prescribed agenda, but ground down and programmed when we should be representing the poetry in our lives. So what is the poetry in our lives? And why do we feel at this particular time that it needs defending and protecting, nurturing, nourishing, and above all, making? Well, it's hard to make anything at a time of such intense cutting and scrutinizing, such a relentless setting of false standards. Where is the poetry in our lives? It's not in the mass of literature so scrupulously generated by the overeager bureaucracy of publicly funded corporations. It's off the record, rarely recorded, and it's not just in human life. The poetry in our lives is everywhere, everywhere, to the point where we are forced to ignore it. Don't move me, don't demand my attention, I'm busy paying the bills. Writing to some branch of the aforementioned heavy players, and otherwise doing things I consider more important, more vital than it is to deal with poetry. And so it is that the poetry in your lives needs defending. You are its worst enemy. Yes, you are its worst enemy. Of course there's other things, but whatever you do, big finish, put a little poetry in it, as you know you can, as only you can. Don't allow the case for the defense of poetry to rest here, but show the world that you know that poetry is always very near.